This is Sara's Kitchen Garden with me, Sara Bäckmo, passionate and inspiring on how to grow a lush, healthy and sustainable vegetable garden. Based in Sweden, gardening all year round, from sarabäckmo.com. Wow, finally out in the fresh air. It's raining. Lovely. I didn't notice actually, because I have been sitting in my sofa for quite a while, waiting for my husband to get home. I'm sure that some of you listening knows exactly how that feels, when you have been indoors for quite a while, putting children to bed and baking bread and taking care of things, just waiting for a small moment where you can just rush out in the garden. And I have been quite busy today. I have had a friend here, Lisa, together with her child, and we have been around checking the garden, playing and talking, and in the morning I was working, so there has been no time for me to be in the garden. But now I'm out. I'm sort of catching the very last daylight, I think. There's no sun, of course, because it's like 10:30 in the evening. Welcome to my English podcast, Sara's Kitchen Garden. And it's a completely new project that I have been, planning and thought about for quite a while. But as it is with new things, you plan and you want to do it like perfect from the start, as it is not only with podcasts or other type of projects at work. It's the same with garden projects, I think. It was that for me when I finally took the decision that I was going to start growing vegetables. I spent like hours and hours, and they became to weeks and weeks trying to figure out the perfect plan for this plot. And I think the best way for me to get started is actually not to aim for perfect things, because I don't like it perfect. That is kind of what I say to people when they ask for my advice about garden projects, and especially on how to start gardening. I just say the most important thing is actually to start. You should not, make the perfect plan, because it will never be as perfect as it is in your head. And the more things you put on paper, the more complicated it gets. So, and it's the same, I think, with this podcast. I am doing a Swedish podcast, and I am very confident with this type of media. I have been working for the Swedish public service, broadcasting radio, for nearly 20 years. So that is basically what I have been doing for a living for a long, long time. I left the radio studio. It was exactly 20 years after I made my first radio show. And I left because I started this garden project in social media, writing and talking about how to grow vegetables. And I am so lucky that I am able to do this. So now I am out in the kitchen garden. It is still raining, just a little bit. And it has been very windy today. And yesterday it was so hot so you couldn't really be outdoors. We had to go swimming several times during the day. It was 33 degrees Celsius outside in the shadow. So it was very, very hot. And today it's been 15 degrees. So it's cold. And I actually wear my knitted hat because, I have no hair. So it's a bit cold on my head if I don't wear it. I love this time of the day when I sort of put my garden to bed in a way. I think I am the most satisfied person when I get to be in my garden. I don't necessarily have to do things in the garden. I just want to watch the garden. And sometimes it's like if I need to see the garden and the things that I need to do, not specifically because I do the things I need to do. I might just say, all right, I see the need, but I choose not to do anything about it. I like to have the kind of feeling of, that I get to choose. And if I get to choose, I feel more satisfied and calm. And I really like that feeling. I am sort of struggling this season with a lot of things that I want to do, but simply can't find time to do it. A couple of days ago, we had a membership day. I run this Swedish website, and I do have membership content. So I invited not everyone because they are thousands, but a few of them came to my garden, and I said to myself that I will challenge myself this day not to talk about the things I haven't done in the garden. And usually it's like an illness maybe, and I don't know if you are the same, but when people come to my garden, I want to talk about the things I did not do, or the things I want to do later on. Oh, more people than me are busy this time of the day. Hi. They are coming to see the cows next to our house and give them some water. The farmers. Well, anyhow, as I said, when I get to talk about my garden here in the garden, and people ask me to show the garden, I end up talking about things that I, one, have not done, and two, want to do later on, like next year. So I rarely talk about the things that I am surrounded with at the moment, because in my thought I am in a way a year ahead of things. I mean, now I can see what this season is like. I mean, I step here and I see this part of the garden where I planted tomatoes, and the tomato varieties from Ukraine, Nikitovka seeds. That's the place where I bought this year's tomatoes that I grow in the open. I do have some tomatoes as well in the polytunnel. And for you guys who do not know where my garden is located, I grow my vegetable garden in Sweden. I actually chose before starting this podcast that I would not do like a traditional hi and welcome episode. I will just throw myself into the most important thing here in the kitchen garden. And if you want to know more about me and the garden, you can check my blog at sarabäckmo.com. Right? So standing here and looking at the plants and the things that I achieved so far this summer? Well, I am already in next summer preparing for the things I might want to do later on. And actually, just a few minutes before I pressed the rec button, I ordered seeds. Well, I ordered a bit too many seeds, I can tell you, because a few weeks ago I made an interview for my Swedish podcast with Michael and Veronica. They run this Swedish seed company, Impecta. And we talked a lot about seeds, of course. I ordered now several packages of perennial like flowers, plants, because I got very inspired in trying to sow some new perennial flowers. It's been years and years since I last saw any perennials. I did very well then, and I still have, of course, many plants left. But I am, to be honest with you, I am a bit tired about the perennials. I mean, I don't unlike perennials. I am just tired in taking care of them. So now I'll move away from the kitchen garden now to this wild and untamed part of my garden. This is actually where I started, in the north parts of the garden. I have some crazy borders filled with lovely flowers that I have sown from seeds, and I have no clue about the names in English, so I will just leave that. But the colors are like blue, some very, very high plants. I think they are amazing, with a slightly yellow flower in top, and they could be like 3 meters tall. And all of the flowers I stand here in front of, I have sown from seeds. I made a blog post in Swedish about my hugelkultur bed that I created on the south part of our house. And it's a bed where I sort of buried trees, an old apple tree, for example, and a lot of very thick and heavy material, and put soil on top, and it's called a hugelkultur bed. And last summer I moved several perennial plants that I was very tired of in another place, so I moved it there. And this year it's amazing. It flowers, and it makes me so happy to see it. So now I am trying to find places or create places where I can put the perennial plants in fall. So my plan is actually to to move them and then to just start all over the place. And this time I will not do like the big borders that I started with, because I simply can't take care of them. I am very good in taking care of this type of beds that I have in the kitchen garden, and that kind of beds are mulched, and that's the most important thing, I think, because then I don't have to think that much about weeds. So I will try to create beds that I can mulch. I will not this time mix that many plants all together. In my dream, I have mixed plants all together, but for now on, when I notice I don't have the time to take care of them, I will try to make beds, just to plant like 5 plants in a row of one kind, and the next bed the same way, basically. So I want to keep the plants in the garden and feel the joy of flowers and everything. And then later on, when my kids are like older, I can do it differently. But to do that and to keep the joy and happiness that I get from sowing and the excitement of watching and follow the different steps with like tiny seedlings and plants. Then I ordered all those perennial seeds, and it will be so fun to do this, to start this project. It's quite easy to sow perennial seeds in fall or in the end of summer, and some of them you can sow already in summer and you just keep them outdoor. I think I will put my seeds in seed trays in the shadow and just leave them be. Try to leave them be. My patience with this is not that good, but I think that will be a good practice, actually. Oh, it's so very dry this summer. We have had some rain, as I said, but not at all as much as we need. And it's making me worried, of course. I have made several things, good things this year, to prevent this very dry catastrophe that we experienced last summer. We were not out of water. We have quite a deep well. It's like 200 meters deep. But still we had problems last year. Basically, I think the water ran quite slow. We didn't have rain for, I think it was 3 months. So we had some difficulties by using our like laundry machine and our dishwasher and so on. So we couldn't wash our clothes actually for several months. That was not fun. Now this is quite funny. I'm standing in front of a palette color. I don't know if you know about palette colors. I made a blog post about it a while ago, but just to give you a short picture, it is like a frame. It's 17 centimeters high, I think, and it's a very common way to start a vegetable garden in Sweden, to use palette colors. You find them everywhere, and it is a kind of thing that a frame that are used in, well, to transport parts for industries and machines and stuff like that. Most of us have a few palette colors in their own garden, and I used to use the palette colors to create like new places for growing vegetables in the garden. I simply put this palette color on top of the lawn, and then I put newspapers, a layer of newspapers in the bottom, just on top of the grass. And then I fill this palette colors, or two maybe, I put them on top of each other. And I put lots of weeds and leaves and straw and whatever I can find, like bokashi compost, and I top it with a layer of soil, and then I can plant things directly onto this. It's like a compost heap, actually. After a while, I can remove the palette colors, and I have my bed. This is what I did last year in a few places in the garden. And I didn't believe that the soil was this rich, but a few weeks ago I planted a few corn plants that I had left, and they look so healthy. They thrive in here. I didn't even mulch with the grass clippings, so it's bare soil, unfortunately. I have to remember this. I pulled some weeds here. I am so happy that I have this mulched garden, because otherwise I do not know how to find time to take care of things, really. I don't mind some weeds, but I hate to feel that I'm drowning and that I can't find time to do anything else than just pulling some weeds. Maybe I should say just a few words about the garden in this very first episode. First of all, the reason why I wanted to do this podcast in English is because I find it, after several years doing Swedish podcasts, it's a very nice way to establish and keep contact in a more personal and direct way, using only my voice, I think. Writing blog posts and making videos, I really, really like that way of communicating. But, using my speech in this way makes it more close in a way. That is how I want to feel when it comes to having contact with my readers and followers. I really like the thought of me being your company in the garden, for example, and in a way you are my company as well, because it's like I have all those friends. I can't really see you, but I know you are there. So just very briefly about this garden. I grow my kitchen garden in south parts of Sweden, outside a very small, it's not even a city, or you might call it a very small city, Växjö. It's definitely in the countryside. I live in this traditional red cottage into the forest. We have some places just around the house where we have cattle. They are not mine or ours. We don't have any animals except a Newfoundland dog and 4 cats and 2 rabbits. But it's a very beautiful place, and it's like you imagine maybe the countryside living in Sweden. It's like living in a dream. I really like it. And 2011 I started this garden project that has become my passion and my everyday life in a way. I am surrounded by growing vegetables and all day long, really. I write about gardening and I talk about gardening and I eat what I grow in the garden. I play out here with my children and I just love it. It's about 500 square meters. I harvest things, vegetables in my garden all year round, and that is something that is changing in Sweden at the moment, and I do think that I have like a huge part in that. When I started gardening, it was not like that. Then people were gardening very traditional, where you sow your seeds in springtime and you harvest in summer and a few things in fall, and then it's just over and people sort of close their gardens in September. I keep sowing. Right now in July I have started a seeds calendar, sowing calendar, I don't know exactly how to name it in English, but where I want to encourage the members at my website to sow 1 new vegetable each day in this month, to have food all fall and also to overwinter a lot of vegetables that we can harvest in late winter and early spring. And I call it winter gardening. In Sweden it is really winter gardening because we do have very cold and very dark winters, and in some parts of the country the winters are also very long. But I will have to get back to that. It's really nice to turn to the house. The night, it's nearly night. I mean, it's not completely dark, but I love to see the house, when you can see the light from our lamps indoors. In a couple of months, we are actually starting to renovate our upper floor. So we are very busy this time, not only working the whole summer through, both me and my husband. I am married to Philip and he's a psychotherapist, and we write books, both of us, and we have a deadline for manuscript, both of us, for new books, the 1st of September. At the same time, we will start this renovating project. I have been waiting for it ever since I bought the house in 2004. And finally, I have saved money and we do have a plan. We know how to do it. I mean, most part of the upper floor is not in use. I hope when I stand here, like in November, there will be light in all the windows And I will then, when I stand here, look at the upper floor from the outside and see my new work room on the upper floor. This is something that I have been longing for so long because I am going to have my desk by a window where I have the most wonderful view over the whole kitchen garden. And that gives me such an inspiration. It's time for me to go indoors and put myself to bed. Tomorrow it's Tuesday, and that means that I am going up very early in the morning to get myself like 2 hours work in the garden before it's time for me to do breakfast and stay with the kids for a couple of hours until lunch. So I will prepare myself by sleeping. Well, anyhow, thank you for listening to this very first podcast. I have been a bit nervous on how to do it, and actually I just said to my husband, I will just grab the microphone now and go out in the garden. And he said, yes, do it. So now I think it will be easier for me the next time. I don't know exactly when I will publish the next episode, but you just subscribe the podcast in your podcast app or check out YouTube for new episodes. Thank you for listening. Please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You'll find so much more about my garden at sarabäckmo.com and YouTube, Facebook and Instagram at Sarah's Kitchen Garden.